Hello, and thank you for watching. My name is Blakely Barty. I'm a reporter for the Aiken Standard. This video is one part of the Aiken Standard's Candidates Forum, a series meant to help you get to know the candidates running for office in November. We sat down with Anthony James and Cameron Nuessle, the two candidates running for District 9 in the Aiken County Board of Education. Our moderator, reporter Colin Demarest, asked each candidate 5 questions and allowed them to make opening and closing statements. The candidates had 2 minutes to answer each question. We are presenting their answers in full without any cuts or editing, so without further ado, please enjoy the video.
Hello, and thanks for joining us. This is one part of the Aiken Standard's larger Candidates Forum, a series meant to get voters familiar with those running for office in November. I'm Colin Demarest, a reporter with the Aiken Standard, and I'll be your moderator. I'm joined today by Anthony James and Cameron Nuessle, candidates for Aiken County School Board District 9. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me explain how this will work. Each candidate will have 1 minute to make an opening statement. After that, a few questions will be posed to each of you. Candidates will alternate answering first. You each have 2 minutes per question. When we're finished with the questions, each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks. Are we ready to begin?
Yes.
Awesome. Anthony, your opening statement, please.
First off, I'd like to thank Aiken Standard here for having us and putting this on for us in this, with what's going on in today's society. It's nice to get some face time with other people. And I'd like to also thank the teachers, administrators, and staff of Aiken County Public Schools for what they do, because without them, we would not be here. And for our students and parents, I'd like to let y'all know that, we all want what's best for the students, and we all take what we're doing right now, running for this office, very seriously. I'd like to thank my family for supporting me through this, because, of course, anyone who's run for office knows it's not the easiest thing to do. And just want to let people know that we are here for the children. That's the whole purpose of this.
Thank you. Cameron, your opening statement, please.
So I grew up in Aiken. My children have always attended Aiken County schools. I'm proud to say that many educators are part of my family, including my wife, Dawn. I have over 20 years of experience in business, managing large budgets, and leading teams, and a decade of firsthand volunteer experience where I've been able to see the successes and opportunities of our schools. In the last year, I've had the honor of serving as your school board trustee. I think I've been able to keep parents informed and prioritize the safety of their children, provide students a pathway to success, and valued and supported our educators. And that's who I want to advocate for. I want to advocate for the parents, students, and teachers of Aiken County. My name's Cam Nuessle, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you. On to the questions. Cameron, you'll answer the first one first. What are the biggest needs of the Aiken County Public School District as a whole, and how will you address them?
So you look across the district, some of the things that I think we need, in no particular order, is I think we have to address teacher retention. So if you look at the statistics on the SARA website, in a 5-year period, we've gone from an 8% teacher turnover rate to the most recent year, 2018-19, to 15%. So our turnover rate's almost doubled in a 5-year span. Now that's a statewide and a national problem, but it doesn't mean we have to be susceptible to it. If you think about what we can do about that, plenty of things. You can provide mentors. We already pay in the upper tier in South Carolina to attract and recruit teachers here. But we want to make sure that we mentor them in order to make sure they develop professionally and that they don't get overwhelmed and that they stay and become successful. In addition, if you look at some of the reasons that teachers are leaving the district, it unfortunately still has to do with what I'll generically call bureaucracy and paperwork, the things that don't have to do with teaching, that they're tasked with. I think we should always be looking to see why we're doing what we're doing and try to eliminate unnecessary tasks and get direct instruction. As well as, unfortunately, discipline issues in the classroom are driving some teachers away. And I think the answer to that is, I think you need to start early with interventions. Early interventions is whether that's a reading intervention or with school counselors. This past year in the district, we just created the Excel program. It hasn't had a chance to prove its success, but the idea is to try to provide social emotional learning to some of our most at-risk kids. Because I know if you don't get a student on track by the time they're about 7 years old, it becomes increasingly hard to break into that gap and close that gap. And lastly, I think not lastly, but we have an achievement gap in this county that we need to address. Everybody should be the same in the same thing. Everyone should be successful. Early interventions, I think, can be part of that in a social emotional learning curriculum. And then lastly, we've done a good job over the last several years with this construction and catching up in our facilities plan. I think we need to keep an eye on that and make sure that we have a solid plan going forward that's monitoring not only what our current needs are, but projected growth in different areas.
Thank you. Anthony, same question to you.
Well, the three priorities I've kind of looked at deal back with my experience. I have some unique experiences with the military and with healthcare and all. One of my first priorities is, of course, what most people think of as safety. But I don't mean just from the health perspective because of what's going on in our world. And with my experience going through paramedic school and working in healthcare and working in ERs and on the ambulances, that is something that most people have learned now. And we have state mandates, we have federal mandates of what we need to do, and we're following those. But also the physical safety of our schools, because if a student feels safe where they are, that's going to foster a better learning. And we need to make sure those students have that environment. The second thing we need to work on is the technology. We started this year with a deficit with IT because of the Aiken Innovate program and trying to get computers and technology to our students. But we also need to look at the staff members. We currently have 2 computer technicians, and they're responsible for getting all these computers straight, and we have 20,000+ computers. That is too many for those people to have, even though there's more being hired, but there's more that can be done. And that's something we need to focus on. I have a background in cyber and IT, and that tells me that's more than these 2 people can handle. And it's a disservice to our children. It's a disservice to the families, because they rely on this to have their kids learn. And then lastly is planning. There's lots of things that have happened here recently that, well, we could never have planned for. It was never on anyone's scope. But planning is one of those things that you have to lean forward into. You have to be proactive. I have 20 years of service with the military. I've done planning at even the state level with emergency management. And that's something you have to lean forward into. You don't plan for hurricanes by planning for a Category 1 hurricane. You plan for a Category 5 and then scale back as needed. So we need to ensure that we are doing everything we can to do the best possible plans, because if we plan properly, it'll help set up our teachers and administrators for success and help them go back to be able to teach.
Thank you. Anthony, you'll answer this question first. In your opinion, has the school district kept students safe during the COVID-19 pandemic, and what would you like to see done differently? Why?
I think the school district has done the best they can. Go back to planning. The school has plans for bringing students in. They've adjusted those plans to meet all the federal and state guidelines. Wearing masks, social distancing, limiting the size of our classes. But there's a lot of things that could have been done better. How do you do, for example, water in the schools? You have water stations that have to be cleaned. Everyone has to touch. Instead of buying water stations, we should have looked more at more contactless stations to fill water bottles and things of that nature. We need to do more planning, and that's why I said back to the planning. Back in April and May timeframe, they looked at, even colleges were tossing around the idea of we might not be able to come back to school in the fall. So was the planning put forth of how do we get our entire school district to be able to be virtual? It's much harder to plan for something you don't do and for something that you've never done than it is to adjust plans for coming back to school, than plan for everyone to be virtual, because that would have been the worst case scenario for what we would have had coming up. And that goes back to my experience. I said emergency management, you don't plan for what you would like, you plan for the worst case scenario. It's always easier to dial back steps than to create them as you go. Our administrators and the staff and our teachers have done an amazing job being reactive to what's been going on, and I applaud them. And some of them have put, even though they have issues, they've put their families at risk because they enjoy what they do, they believe in what they're doing, they believe in our children, and we really need to support them as best we can.
Thank you. Cameron, same question to you.
Yeah, so the question was, do we think the district's done everything possible to keep children safe in this pandemic and how we've returned to school? And I think we have when you look at the measured approach that the district has taken. So I think we've looked at the data and tried to formulate a plan where we phased into school, all right, based on the conditions and the data we had. And I was happy to see that the district created an advisory committee that involved local physicians, as well as district employees and educators, to weekly review that data to make sure that nothing's getting out of control, right? If you look at supplies, PPE and cleaning, disinfecting supplies were supplied to the school. They quickly tried to write as many protocols and procedures as they could. And then obviously being cautious and not jumping right into 5 days a week, but using a hybrid schedule and having social distancing, and proving that we could handle it, and being cautious. I think that measured approach was putting the safety and health of our children first. Now, what do I think we could have done better? I wish, well, that's like saying, can we create more time? Would I have liked to have everything sooner than we had it? Sure. But I've been happy with the way that they've tried to deal with the crisis.
Thank you. Cameron, you'll answer this question first. What issues do you hope to address that affect District 9 and the Aiken area specifically, and why?
Sure. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a repeat from the question earlier, where you're saying what affects the county and the whole district, with maybe a little bit of a twist. When you look at District 9, I think the main thing that we need to address, well, a couple of things. First of all, if we have to get past is maybe not the right term, but we have to deal with this pandemic. So the number one thing that folks want is to get their kids back in school. It's an incredible burden to parents, and it's not an ideal educational system for our children. I don't think there's anybody that can say that no matter how much you get done in a school day, that going to school 40% of the week is better than going a full week, no matter how much you get done in a small class size. So making sure we work through safely in a measured approach to get our children back to school is, I think, the top thing that's on everybody's mind, and will be for a while, until we've safely and successfully gotten there. Beyond that, I think what we need to look at is, you look at the state of our facilities specific to where the students in District 9 attend school. They are not, especially with the addition and replacement of the older buildings at Millbrook Elementary, there are not 100-year-old schools in District 9. There's not 60-year-old schools in District 9, but there are 40-year-old schools in District 9, and need to make sure that they're on the facility plan and get taken care of, so that our students are going to school in a safe, secure, and positive environment to go to school. And last, I think, just like we said, as far as the rest of the county, I truly believe that creating the Excel program for social emotional learning for younger students, and then trying to focus more attention on early interventions, will be good for District 9, just like it will the whole district.
Thank you. Anthony.
So the question is, what do I think would be best for District 9? I would have to say the safety, of course, of our children. That is paramount right now. We all feel the burden of our children being at home more, doing virtual learning for those of us who are doing virtual learning, and having to deal with checking in on different times of the day and making sure our children are doing their work and checking over stuff, make sure that things are submitted. Getting back to school 5 days a week is is important, not just for the parents, but also for the children, because you have that social interaction that's key, especially at younger ages, for developing their social interaction skills, developing problem-solving skills, and doing a whole bunch of other things that the students or that the children need to help develop them socially, emotionally, physically. It's a very big issue. The schools, as Mr. Nuessle said, we need to get that modernization there, and that goes back to planning and getting them on that list and making sure we make them a priority for our constituents. My mother-in-law was a teacher. Her mother was a teacher. My brother-in-law is a teacher, actually. So I have a good family ties with teachers, and making sure that they have the support they need to be able to teach our children effectively is very important. We have a large population of students that need more help than just in the classroom. The Excel program is a wonderful start to that, but we need to ensure that we have everything in place to make those key points with our children, and make sure that they have all the support they need, because the goal should never be to just get them through what's going on right now. Our goal should be to get them through the next step and to make sure that they're prepared for the future.
Thank you. Anthony, you'll answer this question first. How could inclusion and diversity be improved in the Aiken County School District?
Well, if you look at the demographics of our school district, we have about, for the major ethnic groups, for the major demographics, we have a large white population. It's about 50%. We have about a third of it is Black and African American, and then about 10% is Hispanic. And honestly, the biggest thing is teaching history. History is one of those things that I'm a firm believer in. If you do not know your history, you're condemned to repeat it. And not just teaching part of history, teaching the whole history. History of what's happened. Everyone's heard the saying of history is written by the victor, but we need to make sure we teach the history of everything that's happened. Whether it is, we have, World War II, we had Japanese internment camps in this country. We've had lots of horrible things that have happened in the world, and the students should be taught things as age appropriate, of course, but taught what needs to happen. If we can teach the full history and make sure our students understand that we're all in this together, and the only way we can move forward is as united people, then that is going to be key. And if we can show them that this is how we progress, then all that will come together for our children.
Thank you. Cameron.
Yeah, there's some questions we need to ask, as well as some things we can do right now, but one of the concerning things is roughly 30% of our student population is involved in over 60% of our expulsions, demographically. Why that is flipped, I don't know. I think it's important to ask the question why and figure it out. If you think, but I think a little bit broader about exclusion and diversity, I think a lot about bringing families into the sense that they're in a family with the school. Students and families will be much more successful if they feel like they're in a partnership and they can trust schools. And I don't think that's always the case. So where I would emphasize is that besides just having open houses and things like that at schools, we need to try harder at building bridges and fostering those relationships with families. And then as well, I think about not every child can demonstrate their achievement in kind of the standard direct instructional way that may be assessed on an ELA assessment or a math assessment. Sometimes it's going to take them being able to demonstrate their knowledge in art, music, STEAM activities. And I think we can do a better job of making that available to students. I really like what they do at New Ellington Middle School, with that being a STEAM school. And then the last thing, I think, and I'm sorry if I keep repeating myself, but as far as making folks feel like they're part of the school family and included, I think we do need to continue on the path of improving our social emotional learning curriculum in elementary schools.
Thank you. Cameron, you'll answer this question first. With the western population migration in Aiken County, what should the school district's priorities be with attendance zones, future school renovations, and other upgrades?
Oh, well, first of all, I mean, we're playing catch up right now. That's my opinion. If you look at a lot of the, I wasn't on the board, right? But what you can kind of tell is how we spent the 1% funds, but more importantly, the $90 million bond referendum funds, especially that $90 million bond referendum, was catching up for growth that wasn't anticipated. It's for expansions at Midland Valley High School. It's for an overcrowded Hammond Hill Elementary, and so forth and so on. So we've talked about this, but you've got to have. Why did that take us by surprise? Because I think it did. I've only been here for a year, but we've got to ensure that we're tying in things like new housing starts and where the growth is going to be when we build that facility plans, and therefore we won't have to we'll be prepared better when those things show up versus having to kind of move people around to make things fit.
Thank you. Anthony.
Well, the schools and overcrowding has been an issue. I mean, Midland Valley was rated not too long ago at 110% of what the school was designed to hold. We need to utilize what we have as well. I mean, we have classrooms that are not utilized at Aiken High, for example. So how can we help move those students to where they're in a better environment and help get them to where they're in classrooms of more reasonable sizes? That helps not only our children, but also helps the teachers teach. An overcrowded classroom, a teacher cannot give the attention they need to their students. And I've been told that by numerous teachers. We need to help get our planning together. So, for example, out on the south side of Aiken, they're planning on building, out where the mall is, they're talking about building apartments. We're already overcrowded. I mean, we're already getting close to our limits. So how do we prepare that for South Aiken High School, Millbrook Elementary, Kennedy Middle School? How do we prepare our schools for that? And that is, those are long-term plans. Those are not plans that are done, hey, this year we're starting to get overcrowded, we're starting to see more stuff, we need to we need to expand the school. Expanding any type of building, much less a school, is a multi-year event. This is stuff you plan 5, 10, 15 years into the future. This is stuff we need to look at, being like, okay, where's our growth now? Where is it projected? Look at how does the census project our growth in the upcoming decade? Because if we don't become proactive, if we don't start being proactive with our planning, we're going to set up our students and our teachers for failure. And Aiken Public Schools is rated as one of the best in the state. I come from a school that's rated as one of the worst in the states. I went to the school district I grew up in is literally listed as one of the worst. We don't need Aiken County to get to that level, and Aiken County's done a very good job at staying up high. The teachers care, the administrators care. They're doing everything they can to keep it going. We need to make sure as a school board we support them and make sure the plans are in place to support that.
Thank you. That's all for the questions. Cameron, your closing remarks, please.
Sure. So, my grandmother only went to school a few years before she had to work, but she read her Bible to me. She never owned a car, but she saved her money so that I could go to college. My mom made the most of her education, graduated valedictorian, and then spent 50 years as an educator motivating students to graduate and improve themselves. What I learned from her was what it meant to people to gain skills, become employable, or maybe even just learn to read. 60% of the students in this county meet some definition of poverty. It can be a bone-crushing poverty. But I'm here to tell you, poverty does not dictate potential. Every child can succeed if given the opportunity. And I think public schools can be that hand up to help students improve their lives. That's why I serve. My name's Cam Nuessle, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Cam. Anthony, your closing remarks, please.
I have spent pretty much my whole adult life in service in one way or another. I've spent nearly 20 years in the military serving our country. I've served our state. And as I come to a close in that time, it's time for me to move on to something else and serve something else. I see no greater challenge, no greater honor than to serve our children and our educators, because without them, we have nothing else in our future. I've done emergency management and planning. I've worked into healthcare and was actually went up through the ranks for paramedic. With my mother-in-law, who's an educator, with her guidance, I actually applied to the Troops to Teachers program and was actually accepted into that program to teach middle school social studies. We need the best possible teachers and facilities we can for our students and provide the best education we can, because without them, there is nothing else. That hand up is key. The students can do great things, but they have to be given the proper opportunities and the proper education. And without that, we do them a disservice and we set ourselves up for failure, because in our future, they're the ones that are going to be supporting us and pushing us forward. Without them, there's nothing, without them being prepared and being prepared to take that next step up to the higher level, to their next step, whatever their passion drives them to, we're setting them up for failure, and that's a failure we cannot afford. My name is Anthony James, and I'm running for Aiken County School Board District 9 seat. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.